Hello and welcome to the Motoring News Zone, the show where we take you through all the biggest stories in the world of cars right now. This week we take a look at California's daylight law and whether it's been working as intended so far, which General Motors vehicles have been affected by the oil consumption lawsuit, and the laws around truckers' speed limiters are to be removed. But what will be the effects of this change? All that and a whole lot more is covered in this week's show. If you're watching on YouTube, skip to the timestamps in the video description to watch the stories that you are most interested in. So, without further delay, let's dive in. If you're in the state of California, you might have heard of something called the daylighting law, which was passed at the start of this year in 2025. But what is this law and how has it been affecting residents in the first half of this year? I've got everything you need to know here on the channel as always, guys. So, California Assembly Bill 413, also known as the daylighting law, went into effect on January 1st of this year. Though its name sounds relaxing and casual, it represents a seriously major shift in how drivers can park their vehicles near intersections across the state of California. The simplest way to put it is that basically the daylighting law makes it illegal to stop, stand, or park a vehicle within 20 feet of any crosswalk, whether it is marked or unmarked. In areas with curb extensions, also known as bulb outs, the distance shortens to 15 feet. For example, here in the UK, we have something that's it's a recommendation rather than a hard and fast law. Basically, you should avoid parking on any intersection within 10 meters of where it actually is, if it can be avoided. Obviously, the roads here in the UK are terrible, so most people do it anyway, but it's not a hard and fast law. However, in California, it is. And it all bubbles down to more pedestrian visibility and fewer accidents as a result. For example, when cars are parked too close to intersections, they block lines of sight for both drivers and pedestrians. And this obviously matters a lot, not least for cars going across the intersection, but also for pedestrians trying to cross it as well. If you can't see what's around the corner, how can you avoid it? And that's for someone who's an adult and able-bodied. What about someone who's disabled? And also, more importantly, in a lot of situations like this, school children as well. This could really help reduce the number of accidents on the road involving school children crossing the road. And a lot of people complain about the rules that are coming in California and the laws, but this is actually one that they're relatively behind the curve with. Now, California likes to be ahead of the curve when it comes to regulations like this, but in this case, for this particular regulation, they are very much behind it. In fact, at this point, 41 of the 50 states in the US have this law or something similar already mandated. California is well behind the vast majority of the country, and a lot of people said that this was very much overdue, but now it's finally in place. And indeed, cities are adapting fast to this new law. For example, in San Francisco, the local transport agency there has said that they will enforce this law across all intersections by the end of 2026. But what impact has it had already? Well, essentially, residents in the state of California were given a 2-month grace period, where if they were in breach of this regulation, they would be given a warning and not an initial fine. Basically, don't do this again. If you do it from the 1st of March, you'll be in trouble. And from March 1st, drivers were given fines of $65 per citation for breaches of this regulation, plus $12.50 in administration charges, bringing the total charge to $77.50. And the regulation is working as intended from a safety point of view as well. Pedestrians across the state are reporting much fewer accidents, and near misses being a lot less frequent as well. So all in all, it is working as intended. Better visibility for both drivers and also pedestrians as well. This can only be a good thing. However, it's all about enforcing these laws to ensure that people actually follow them. For example, I saw a comment from Gregory on MSN saying that he was a resident in Denver, Colorado, and said that, yeah, in the neighborhoods, in the residential areas, that it's very much enforced in that state, as they have a rule there too for that. But in the trendier shopping districts, the busier parts of the city, basically it's Lord of the Flies. Anybody does what they want, and it's not really enforced. So it's all about enforcing these laws to make sure they are followed. And we'll see how this very much does evolve in the state of California. But yeah, guys, if you're a resident in Cali, if you're a resident in a US state where this is actually a thing or something similar to it, which is the vast majority, and I think only 9 of them don't have it at this point, 41 do. Let us know your thoughts about this in the comments below. So we've spoken a lot about the cost of tariffs, what the actual impact of tariffs will be on the cost of vehicles in the United States for consumers. So unless you've been living under a rock for the last 3 months or so, you will of course know about these tariffs coming into place on the automotive industry. If cars are brought in from abroad, if their parts are brought in from abroad and then assembled in the United States, they are subject to tariffs placed upon them. 25% for anything that's foreign made. The only exception I'm aware of to that at the moment is the United Kingdom, which of course has negotiated a reduced fee for these tariffs overall. But even then, it is significantly more than what it was previously. So the main question a lot of people have when it comes to this is, what is the impact going to be when it comes to the cost of vehicles in the US? Well, I've got the lowdown here for you guys because it's not quite as clear cut as what you might think. And I say that mainly because the fact is the price of overall cars in the US has not increased that much yet. Now prices of cars are going up, of course, same for used cars as well. In fact, the cost of an average used car in the US reached record levels just recently, and new cars, of course, they cost something on average like at least 50 grand in the US right now. And when it comes to these prices being changed, of course, they did increase recently in April. But in May, they actually reduced. However, they have still increased overall when compared to the pre-tariff levels, around 2% or so increase, which is significant, but it is not huge. It is not a massive increase, but it is noticeable nonetheless. So why is this the case? How have the prices stayed relatively low? How have the prices only increased by a little bit when, of course, tariffs placed upon them should in theory increase the prices by 25%? Well, there's a few reasons for this. Most of the cars that you'll get in dealerships, especially immediately after these tariffs were announced, would have been imported before this. Tariffs are not applied based on the date of sale. They are based upon the date of import. So any vehicles entering the United States after that, they will be subject to tariffs. But anything that was already in the United States, any parts that was already in the United States, those would be tariff-free. They effectively escaped and got through without having the tariffs applied to them. And even though it's been a few months, it's not uncommon for cars to take a while to be sold, so the impact of these tariffs is effectively a delay. It's a lag of several months. You'll only see the effects of them as we go further into 2025, but they will have an effect. Make no mistake about that whatsoever. Even though the manufacturers are planning on absorbing some of the costs of these, effectively reducing their profit margins compared to what they were before to make them more desirable and more affordable to most consumers, they will have a significant impact. And these increases are not exclusive to foreign car manufacturers. They do apply to American ones as well. Even if they are an American company, if they produce their cars outside of the US, or if they import parts in from outside of the US and assemble them in America, they will still increase. For example, the average Buick is expected to rise by around 22% because of these factors. Because even though they are American, they make most of their cars in China and South Korea. And even if they do make a change to be more US-centric in the future, that will still have an effect on cost, which I've already covered before. But right now, if things stay as they are, Buicks on average will go up by around 22%, which is close to 25% tariff that is being applied. It is less though because, like I said, they will want to absorb some of the costs themselves just to make them more desirable still. Now, kind of going on that theme, it is the Korean manufacturers that are expected to increase their prices the most. The two giants over in South Korea, Hyundai and Kia, they are both expected to go up by 22 and 21% respectively, so over 20% in total. And even though Hyundai and Kia do have manufacturing in the US, many of their parts are still brought in from Korea to be assembled in America, so they are still subject to tariffs. Other manufacturers that we can expect to see a big increase are BMW and Mazda, both at 19%, Lexus at 17%, Subaru at 16%, Chevrolet, another American brand, at 15%, as well as Nissan, also 15%. Volkswagen and Toyota at 14%, Ford at 13%, and GMC at 12%. Ford and GMC, American again, and they are still being affected significantly by this. And completely coincidentally, and totally surprisingly, I never saw this one coming. I don't know about you guys, but Tesla is set to be the least impacted in terms of their prices overall. 3%. Doesn't that seem odd? That seems totally peculiar. I can't figure out why that could possibly be. I don't know about you guys, but that does seem a bit strange. I never saw that one coming either, really. No, definitely not. But it's not just Tesla. Some American brands are, of course, affected a lot less. Jeep, on average, they're expecting around 6%. Honda, even though they are Japanese, have got significant presence in the US, they're around 8%. So to give you an idea in terms of the actual real cost and not a percentage, I'll just use some examples here. So for the Honda Civic, we're expecting a new one of those to go up by around 2,000 to 3,000. That's one of the least affected models. Ones that are affected a little bit more, such as a Chrysler Pacifica or a BMW X3, anywhere between $4,000 and $8,000, those will increase. And then if you get to the more expensive vehicles that are manufactured outside of the US, for example, a Mercedes G-Wagon, that could go up by up to 15 grand. So yeah, it's significant. It's going to It's going to impact the price of new vehicles. We knew this was coming. When this will actually happen, it's kind of a blink first scenario. You don't want to be the first one to shoot, really, in this kind of Mexican standoff, really, this, or US standoff, I suppose you should really say, an American standoff. But it's going to happen eventually. There's going to come a point when the manufacturers are going to have to increase the prices of their cars. We're talking about 15 grand extra. And even for the cheap and cheerful, even in the least affected vehicles, you're talking about a couple $1,000s on top of that asking price. So yeah, General Motors are having to do some big payouts right now. Why is that? Well, it's all down to the settlement for oil consumption issues in some of their most popular vehicles. Why is that? Well, I'll explain all in this video, guys, and also how you can potentially claim some compensation for these issues to do with GM vehicles. So GM has agreed to a major settlement of around $150 million to resolve an extensive case concerning excessive oil consumption in certain engines. The case involves popular models such as Chevrolet's Avalanche, Silverado, Suburban and Tahoe, as well as GMC Sierra, Yukon and Yukon XL, all between the model years 2011 to 2014, and this concerns specifically the LC9 engine. So if you have one of those vehicles, you can claim some compensation as a result. I'll explain all at the end of the video with that. Now, as you might have noticed, these vehicles are rather old. They're all over 11 years older, if not older than that. So why has this taken so long to come to light? Well, unfortunately, GM have not exactly been open and transparent with the issues for these vehicles, hence why it's taken over a decade for this to happen. The extensive settlement follows accusations from dissatisfied vehicle owners in the state of California, Idaho, as well as North Carolina, alleging that GM concealed issues with engines consuming more oil than they should do. According to the plaintiffs in these cases, the automaker was fully aware of the problem but failed to inform customers. Basically, they quoted a certain value for the miles per gallon for their vehicles and they did not match it, and they were never going to match it, it is alleged. Hence why there is a payout for this. It's effectively false advertising. If you buy a vehicle that can do, say, 40 miles to the gallon, it can only do 30, even in ideal conditions, then, well, it's not exactly scientifically backed now, is it? Interestingly, though, I'm saying alleged because GM have not yet admitted liability in this case, but the automaker has agreed to compensate the owners of these vehicles in a settlement, which averages at least $2,149 per owner. But the amount that's going to be paid out will depend on how many people actually claim in this case. So how do you get your money if you are affected by this, if you own one of these vehicles? Well, compensation will be distributed proportionally among vehicle owners based upon the number of vehicles they own or lease. While owners from California and Idaho are automatically included in the settlement, but if you're from North Carolina, you will get an ID form in the post, and this will need to be returned by August 8th, 2025 if you're going to get your compensation. So there's not a lot of turnaround time there, so make sure you look out for that if you do have one of those vehicles listed. But yeah, interesting one, guys, for sure. A bit of a egg on face moment for GM there with that. At least the owners of these vehicles are going to get some compensation, but is it enough? That's debatable, and I'll let you debate it in the comments below, guys. So Tesla, they're wanting to do some updates for their cars. What is this? What is this going to involve, and what difference is it going to make? I've got everything you need to know here on the channel as always, guys. So Motor Biscuit recently reported that Tesla has revealed a revamped Model S that promises to go where no Tesla vehicle has gone before. On a post to X on June 13th, Tesla announced that the Model S and X are now even better following an update to their interior and exterior design. As one of its top highlights, the Model S long range will now be able to do 410 miles on a single charge, and according to Tesla, that makes it the longest range Tesla yet. The most recent iterations of the S have an estimated range of between 360 and 405 miles, depending on the specific trim and other available options as well. So it's not a significant increase from the best model before, only 5 miles or so, but that's the standard version. There is potential, I suppose, for it to improve as well in time. So how have they achieved this? Well, no doubt the battery technology has been improved, but also things like the wheel design and improved aerodynamics as well will also make that vehicle more efficient. In terms of the technology in the car as well, more effective active noise cancellation systems as well as newly redesigned front cameras as well make it easier to drive. So how much does it cost? Well, $5,000 more than it did before. But if you're getting the new one, you want to upgrade, that may well be worth it. But will it be enough to reverse the trend of Tesla vehicles not selling as well, them struggling? Well, that's a different debate for another day, but certainly improving what they've got so far, that will help. But will people be willing to take the plunge for an extra $5,000? Thoughts in the comments below are appreciated as always, guys. A new law has been passed in the state of Virginia that's going to tighten up the seatbelt rules for backseat passengers. And if you don't comply with these new regulations, you will be hit with at least a $25 fine as a result. What is this new rule? When is it taking effect? And what is the thinking behind it? I've got everything you need to know here in this video here for you guys today. So a new rule has been passed in the state of Virginia that has taken effect from the 1st of July. So it's already in place. As per the new rule, if any adult sitting in the front or the back seats of a vehicle skips their seatbelt fastening, the driver will be obliged to pay a fine of $25 per unbuckled passenger if you get spotted by a law enforcement officer. Before, only the front seat passengers were actually required to wear seatbelts by law in the state of Virginia, which was in place since 1988. So if you were a backseat passenger before July 1st of this year, you'll be fine. You don't have to, by law, actually buckle up. But now, though, things have changed. $25 fine per infringement, whether that be the passenger, the driver, whether that be the front seat or the back seats. However, this fine is not going to be a primary enforcement. It's going to be a secondary enforcement instead. What that basically means is if you get pulled up for another reason, like your tail light being out, some kind of damage on your car, if you're driving erratically or something like that, and then the officer discovers that you've got a passenger or passengers in your vehicle that have unbuckled seatbelts, then they will give you a fine. They will not be able to pull you over just for having a passenger without their seatbelt being fastened up. But that's more than it was before, at least. This should hopefully prevent serious injuries in the case of road traffic accidents. I really shouldn't have to spell out how important and how crucial wearing your seatbelt is in a car, because if you get into an accident, you could be in a world of hurt as a result of that. You're very much... But in a lot of states, it's not even actually an offence to not wear your seatbelt, but Virginia has tightened their laws up as of July 1st of this year. And the whole thinking behind it is because basically there's a lot of issues when it comes to road safety in the state of Virginia. And this all came about because of pressure from the federal government saying that Virginia needs to be more in line with the majority of states in the US. And indeed, Virginia now makes up one of the 34 out of the 50 states that have such rules for backseat passengers. But interestingly, only 15 states in the US mandate seatbelts for front seat passengers. And believe it or not, even to this day, the state of New Hampshire does not require anybody to wear a seatbelt in their vehicle, including the driver. According to the DMV, around 35% of people who were killed in road traffic accidents could have survived if they wore a seatbelt in the United States, that being all of last year. And Virginia has also passed a new law as well that means that doing takeovers on the road will come under the reckless driving category. So you can get in trouble for that as well now if you get spotted doing it. So interesting stuff there, guys. Virginia tightening up their road safety rules. Are you in favour of this? Let us know in the comments below. Are you somebody that lives in Virginia? Did you always buckle up if you were sitting in the rear seats of your car? I want to hear what you have to say in the comments below as always. So, speeding. It's a very controversial issue. Some people believe there should be no speed limits, particularly on the fastest highways. Other people believe that speed limits should be lowered and speeders should be punished more harshly. Indeed, in states like Florida and Connecticut, we've seen recent laws be passed where guys that are doing over 100 miles an hour in their vehicles and get caught will be potentially thrown in prison for a short jail term sentence as a result. But interestingly, the US Department of Transportation is actually going the other way. They are to remove safety devices that are fitted to semi-trucks that are there to monitor people's speed, that are there to monitor truck drivers' speed. So in theory, truck drivers can go as fast as they want down the highways without being caught as easily. Is this a smart move? Is it not? What is the thinking behind this? I've got everything you need to know about this news story here on the channel as always, guys. So the Department for Transportation in the United States has scrapped a rule mandating speed limiting devices on heavy-duty trucks, allowing them to race along the nation's highways at top speed. The devices in question, also known as governors, place a limit on the maximum speed at which large trucks can travel by preventing their engines from running any faster than a preset number of revolutions per minute. This typically means that they cannot go faster than between 55 to 70 miles an hour, and this is all in the interest of safety. After all, why are you going more than the speed limit? You are in a large vehicle and you're also transporting goods, and presumably you're doing this for work as well, so you're representing the company. So a lot of people do this these days to actually reduce things like insurance and stuff like that. There's a lot of thinking behind it. But like I said, the Department of Transportation is going the other way now. But what is the thinking behind this? Well, it's basically to ease conditions for long-haul truckers. This announcement will also include a $275 million investment in expanding truck parking spaces and simplifying the wording of federal regulations. This government has, of course, been reducing regulations and simplifying things, so this is basically on that level of thinking. This is basically on that vibe, for lack of a better term. The DOT said in a statement that mandating speed limiters on heavy-duty trucks isn't just an inconvenience, it is a safety hazard when drivers are forced to go slower than the flow of traffic. The DOT said in a statement announcing the package. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, FMCSA, and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, are withdrawing a joint rulemaking that proposed to require speed limiting devices on heavy vehicles, they went on to add. This decision respects the professionalism of drivers and acknowledges the proposed rulemaking lacks sufficiently clear and compelling safety jurisdiction. End quote. Sean Duffy, the Transportation Secretary for the Trump administration, said the following: "Truckers keep America running. While the country sleeps, truckers grind through the night to help shelves get stocked, families fed, and businesses humming. It's a job that requires grit and dedication, but for too long, Washington, D.C. has made it harder for truckers. That ends today. Thanks to President Trump, we are getting Washington out of your trucks and your business." End quote. And the headline for this from Duffy was "America First, Safety First." But of course, the obvious downside to this is that people will claim that truckers are going to speed now without any kind of repercussions, that some of them can't be trusted to actually drive safely. But what do the stats say? What do they suggest when it comes to this regulation? So according to the FMCSA, when it comes to accidents on the road involving trucks, in 2020, the figures were relatively low at 143,000 because of the pandemic. In 21, as regulations started to be eased, it went up to 166,000. Interestingly, it actually fell the following year in 22, down to 165,000. In 23, it actually fell even more to 155,000, and last year it was 151,000, almost as low as what it was in 2020. So far in 2025, there's been 39,000 accidents recorded. And of those accidents over the past 5 years, just 6% of them involved a fatality. But that doesn't paint the whole picture as well. Who's actually at fault for these incidents? Was it the other driver that's not driving a truck, or was it the truck driver? Again, we need to dive a bit more into the stats to be able to say for something like that. And even though it's no longer a regulation from a national standpoint, a lot of companies will still go over the speed limit of around 75 miles an hour or something like that, depending obviously on the state they are in and the load they are hauling. But it is no longer mandated by the government. So guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Is this the correct move by the government? Is this something that was overregulated, or does it need to be mandated by law that these truckers need to keep in the speed limit, or should they just be trusted to do so anyway? I want to hear what you have to say in the comments below. He's threatened to do it. He said he was going to do it. Now he has done it. The mega bill, the big beautiful bill by President Donald Trump, will get rid of the $7,500 EV tax credit after September. It's not going into effect right away, but it will do from September. So if you want to get an electric vehicle, now is the time to do it, because in a couple months' time, you will have to pay more for it. You'll have to pay $7,500 more for it. Let's have a look at this story here on the channel as always, guys. Let's see what's been going on when it comes to this tax credit and that big, beautiful bill that we hear so much about. So the legislation is expected to be signed by President Donald Trump before the 4th of July, before this weekend, and it will take effect from September the 30th of this year. And it not only gets rid of the $7,500 tax credit for those who buy a new electric vehicle, it also does so for the $4,000 credit for a used electric vehicle as well. So people looking to get the discounts with that will not be able to do it going forwards either after September 30th. So off the back of that, many people are predicting that sales of electric vehicles, both used and new, are going to really spike over these next few months. Although, of course, there will effectively be a lag in terms of how many are getting sold from September 30th. We'll see a massive drop-off from October onwards when it comes to electric vehicles, most likely. So the sales figures for all this are going to be really, really interesting to go over. And of course, I will bring it here on the channel as always. So what was this law? Well, it was the Inflation Reduction Act, and it was basically brought in by President Biden, of course, Biden being the president at the time, and it offered tax breaks for electric vehicles going all the way through to 2032. And the aim was basically to boost the sales of electric vehicles, both new and used, across the United States. However, Trump has made it very clear that he wants to get rid of this, and this is something that has enraged Elon Musk. That is one of the biggest reasons why those two have been fighting very publicly online over the last few weeks. And I've already brought you all the updates with that because, yeah, interesting stuff being said by the pair of them, really, to put it very mildly. And of course, more electric vehicles, less greenhouse gases, cleaner air. That was basically the thinking behind it. However, Trump has gone against that. He doesn't want the government to be subsidizing the sale of electric vehicles, both new and used. So in theory, there's more money to actually spend on other things as well. But we're not going to get into the weeds on that, guys. I want to hear what you have to say in the comments below. Are you glad this bill is gone? Are you happy it's going? Or are you sad that it's going away? Is it going to affect you? Are you going to be buying an electric vehicle in the next few months as a result of this? Or are you just going to hold off and maybe get a gas-powered car in the future? I want to hear what you have to say in the comments below as always, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe as always. Have a fantastic day wherever in the world today, and we'll see you very soon.